Hello, DEC Young Leaders, and happy Wednesday. I'm Steve Gorian, President and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club, and it's great to see you all today. A couple of quick announcements before we get started. I do want to take a brief moment to thank the terrific DEC sponsors that you're seeing on your screen for their continued support of our mission. And I also want to thank you for continuing to support the DEC with your membership. On a programming note, April and May are really busy, and we think we've got something for everybody at the DEC. So be sure to get your tickets to some upcoming events. Next Tuesday, we'll host former GE CEO Jeff Immelt. He's got his new book, Hot Seat. It's really, really great. Lessons that he's learned in his 17 years as CEO of General Electric, leading 300,000 employees. Really, really good book. And for young leaders only, a professional development seminar next Thursday focused on creating and sustaining a positive work life. And then on May 12th, we'll host the CEO of Delta Airlines to get his thoughts on the future of travel. Plenty of other events in between. So get your tickets, free, of course. Check out the website, and we hope you can join us. Today, we will spend some time together where, like all our other Young Leader CEO meetings, we'll learn from successful executive and grow our DEC member networks. We do want to see your happy faces, so put your video on and mute your mics. If you have a question for our speaker, just use the chat box, let me know, and I'll call on you in the final portion of the meeting today. You don't have to type the question in, just type the word question and I'll know what that means. So let's get started. Our special guest today is my good friend, Rod Alberts. Rod arrived in Detroit 30 years ago, I think when he was 5 years old, and was soon named Executive Director of the DADA and the North American International Auto Show. He represents over 200 auto dealers in Southeast Michigan, and Rod is their voice at the state and federal levels. He's a native of Missouri and a graduate of the University of Missouri, and is a big baseball fan, I know, so it's easy for him to say, "Go Tigers." His most important work, of course, is as a highly valued board member of the DEC. And Rod's been so supportive of me personally in my role as CEO, and I can't thank him enough. So Rod, great to see you today. Thanks for being with us.
Steve, it's wonderful to be here. I wish it was more in person and live in that regard, but we'll take what we can get, right?
I totally agree. So, yeah, I never asked you, and we both share this love for baseball. You grew up in Missouri. Were you a Kansas City Royals or a St. Louis Cardinals fan, or maybe they hadn't even invented baseball yet when you were a kid?
Well, when I'm Midwest, mid part of Missouri, so the Cardinals were the end all, obviously. The hardest part, now I know you guys were probably not born in 1968, but you remember that big year with K-Line and all those guys. We played the Tigers back then, and you guys took care of us pretty good. But yeah, by the time I've been here for 30 years, and I realized when we had that rematch a few years back, I became a true Tiger fan, rooting
That's
for the
awesome.
Tigers over the Cards. So
Awesome.
you can, look what you've done to me, Steve.
Glad to have you on the good side. So you, my friend, you're at the very center of major transformation in the auto industry, and we're going to talk about that today and how you're managing through that. But first, some really big announcements that came out of you guys today. Let's start with it. Motor City Kart Crawl, MC3, baby. Tell us what you got.
Well, this is something that I think it's important to understand that MC3, we try to get a little edgy with our acronym. It sounds like a band from the 1970s, MC5. That was a whole other era, right? I don't remember it, of course. Maybe you do, Steve. But MC3 really came out of a need to help some charities, and actually from a second point of view, also to prime restaurants and businesses downtown when we come out of the pandemic. And I figured that in 3 or 4 months, again, we're having a spike right now, but in 3 or 4 months when things ease up, why not take on a very walkable Detroit, which is we're one of the best cities in the country for walking around with restaurants. And I don't think a lot of people take advantage of it. If we open it up and we can be come out of the starting gate with a chance for the restaurants and then the charities to make a little bit of money, why not? Sometimes out of these situations, good ideas emerge, and that's what came from it. We're working with the downtown Detroit partnerships, and through that, it's created a good opportunity with Eric Larson and his team to do some things because they run the parks. And again, it's all walkable. We're kind of like Paris walking around Detroit. You know, we always had the auto show in January, and it was tough to get around downtown if you were from out of town. But this is something too that, again, with Campus Martians right in the middle and all the parks, walk around with cars in the backdrop, food trucks, music. In fact, on Saturday night, on August 5th through the 8th, on that Saturday night, the 7th, we're going to have a headliner of some sort in Campus Martians. So I can't tell you who that is yet. That'll be the next announcement. But the cool factor is, why not just not roll into the out of the pandemic, but let's come out with a big bang and do something really significant and impactful for the charities, and have fun too. Have a glass of wine or a beer and hang out.
Well, it always is fun. So that'll be great. And actually, just I think about 2 weeks later, then we'll get into the Dream Cruise. So that'll be a great month for auto enthusiasts. Yep. And I think it's great that you're trying to support all of the local restaurants who have been suffering so badly downtown with all the pedestrian traffic. So to me, Rod, MC3, and it's a great idea, congratulations, but that's a symptom of how much things have changed within the auto industry and with auto shows. So let's start with the auto industry before moving to shows. I'm going to ask you just to talk about the massive change going on in that all-important industry.
Yeah, you know, I've been here for 30 years. I just do want to make note here, Andrea Trudeau, who's a member of your Young Leadership Program, she's on the line right now, and she can correct me with anything I say that's not correct, right, Andrea? So you're on mute, I can tell. You got a smile out of her.
She's smiling.
Yeah, so, anytime.
Yeah. So, you know, being here 30 years, that first 10 years I was here in the 90s, and by the way, I will reveal my age a bit. I was 33, 34 when I came in. You know, and you think time doesn't go by in a hurry, and it does. And I'm looking at most of you probably at that age. All I can tell you is don't waste any time, because it gets by in a hurry, as Steve would tell you too.
Amen.
But in the 90s, there was a lot of money being spent on displays and marketing. Shows were really taking off. The economy was good. So we were at really a good timing on the front end of taking a show that was really a regional show for 80 years and turning it into an international show. And that was my job when I came in 1990. And it went great. It was really an amazing journey that first several years, because what you'd have is a good byproduct showing the growth was we raised $200,000 in 1990 for charity preview. And by we got to 97 and 98, we were raising $7 million in one night.
Jeez.
So it tells you how important and significant the show was. As you get to the last 20 years, there's been a few milestones that really changed the industry. The marketing money dried up a bit. Everybody's looking for ROI. And the big deal in 2008, I'll not forget this, around Thanksgiving, when we had the collapse in the economy and the recession hit, the deep recession. I was sitting at my desk, and I'll not forget, and I'm having phone calls coming in from different manufacturers saying we're pulling out of the show. Now, understand, we're moving in the show at that time. It takes 2 to 3 months to move in those big displays. And here we're on a roll for 20 years, building it incrementally. And now the rug's pulled out from under us. So when you have something like that happen, and I felt like I was in that movie, It's a Wonderful Life. You know, you're trying to save the bank at the end of the day and have money in it. I was just trying not to have everybody pull out of the show. And we really had a tough 2009 show. But I think what we had to realize is what had changed the landscape of the industry. In the next 2 to 3 years after that, you had GM that went from 12 brands to 4 brands, and Ford went from 8 brands to 2 brands. It tells you the number of brands, the number of product, everything was changing and evolved. And again, it became more efficient in regards to marketing money and how it was spent. And then you got the other side of that too, with technology coming into play, and there's other ways to spend money. And you've got leadership that's coming in. The CEOs coming in and spending it different ways. So much had changed in the industry. The other is, in that period of time, China came into play here too. They came in a wave first to show the culture, and then they were looking to come in the market. Well, that slowed up too. But I got to say again, in the last 5 years, electrification, autonomous cars, who would have thought it would come in so quickly? So the industry has changed, and everything with that. So that led into other things too with the auto show, obviously.
Yeah, you reacted with mobility. Tell us about how that worked out.
Well, the automobility side of it, when we came up with this, and Andrea was a big part of that 4 or 5 years ago too, we thought, why don't we bring technology companies into it? CES had taken off. A lot of companies were going down to unveil their product. in Vegas. And when we got to the automobility side, I thought, well, will we actually sell out if we took an entire hall and brought in technology companies? Is there enough of them out there? And good Lord, between startups and technology companies, even based in Michigan, it was an enormous. And we sold out in the first or second year completely with 150 companies. I mean, who'd have thought? And again, the startups aren't going away. They're accelerating in regard to how many are out there. So the automobility took off, and then it told us that we got to stay that course, and we got to start showing that kind of product because people want to be around the technology and know what it's going to mean for them in the long run and how it fits in their lifestyle and infrastructure of the world. So all that was a big play in that. And again, you have to embrace it because if you don't, you're going to be left behind.
So Rod, I know you travel to internationally to all the different major shows. This is happening all over the world, not just here at the North American International Auto Show. Can you talk about what you're seeing around the world?
Yeah, there's actually a couple points to make on what's happened with shows. And again, that's a marketing basis for marketing for debuts and product coming out typically. As of late, the pandemic, no, because you've got to do it virtually. But if you take Frankfurt, the big daddy of shows, and Geneva last year was canceled the day before it was supposed to open.
Wow.
And they're now bankrupt. Probably the #1 media show in the world. Frankfurt moved to Munich. Who would have thought they would move their show to another location? Think about where they moved their show in September. They moved it to a place where there's an Oktoberfest going on with the beer gardens. So what you've got is people are thinking festival and not just a collection of things to do and attractions. And I see the tie-in there. So again, between Tokyo, Paris, and we're in that top five media-driven shows. And the larger they are, the harder they fall. That's the same thing here because your media-driven is not as consumer. It's a byproduct with consumers. But when we were hit on the media side where they may not show up at shows, and then the pandemic, you're really going through a very difficult time. One other thing too, concept cars became fewer. We used to have as many concept cars debuted as we had production cars. Heck, you don't even see concept cars anymore.
Yeah.
If you do, they're going to be virtual, online, or whatever, because they cost too much money. So with fewer brands, fewer product, more technology built into the car, it changed auto shows too. And that's what we had to embrace.
Talk to me about technology, because I know that is basically playing a major role in the product itself and also with car shoppers. It's all about technology in the vehicle and how I actually shop.
Well, I feel like I'm talking to the choir. Everybody could answer this question that's probably on this call, even probably more so because you're the young buyers right now too. You're the ones that have the cash because you're making so much money at your jobs, I'm assuming, right? But you can go out and buy and lease that car, and you're the GMP. So you know what you do to look for a car, which we didn't do 25 or 30 years ago, and that's all online. I still believe though, because you have to kick tires, and that's an old way of saying you'd go to the auto show. But I think more now it's engaging the product with you, because I think that's what you want to be and see the technology and touch the car. You still have to do that because cars cost $40,000. And I'm still a believer from a show aspect, but again, the shows have to change to be a part of that and not just try to fight the internet or not be a part of it. We have to embrace that too and make it a part of the buying experience along with seeing the car.
That's great. I'm going to remind the people on the Zoom, if you've got a question, we're going to get to those in a few minutes. Just type in, "Hey, Steve, I got a question," or just say "question," and we'll get to you. So, all right, Rod, you're going through major changes. You're doing a great job of steering the DADA and the auto show. And I think I mentioned earlier, you're turning a battleship in the middle of a tsunami. So talk to us about lessons you've learned and maybe some leadership skills that you've had to employ as you lead your team and 200 auto dealers in Southeast Michigan.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest, people, it's just a collection of a way people think in a social group and setting and culture. People become paralyzed when things are disrupted. And that's the hardest part. You got this culture and you got a machine going and things are going great. They know what they're there for and believe in. And suddenly this is all broken up, and it disrupts. Now this kind of pandemic has disrupted everybody, let alone the industry and where it's going in disruption. So paralyzation, I think, is the worst part. And then as a leader, and I'm, here I've been doing this a long time, and I thought I had things figured out. That's when you realize how much you don't know, because what you end up having to do is give something to believe in again, and it's going to be different than what they believed in before. And you've got to show where that's headed, and that's not an easy task. The other is, with the dealers too, and again, they're entrepreneurs, so they understand that we had to make a change. And maybe the North American Auto Show was a great identifier of what we were, but maybe it's Detroit Auto Show now. Maybe we've got to change that when the time comes. But these other events, you just have to come up with a game plan and really fight the naysayers. You get in these times when people get paralyzed, they give a reason not to do anything at all. And in my mind, I think that's the time you want to do it, because you want to get out there and create something new and be innovative. This, to me, is an opportunity. I mean, I think Churchill once said something about never let a good crisis go to waste. And there's a lot to be said for that, because you can actually far outdistance anybody else, or you're competing out there, which we all are. If you're stuck in your way and you don't move, the world's going to pass you by the handful of people that take it on. And that's one thing I'm finding I like taking this on, because it kind of gives me energy and passion again. For a long time we had a machine, it was going great. Don't mess up don't mess up, it's not broken. But you get bored with that too. And the wake up call is go out and take advantage of what's going on right now. It's ugly, it's not fun. And would you wish upon it? No, but there's something built into it. And if nothing else, what you're going to find is when you dig deep for your own talent, I mean, I'm finding new talents that I didn't even know I had or thought I had, maybe, or I get Andrea to do it if I can't figure it out. But the thing is, you've got to dig deep, and in the end of it, you actually find your real character in some of the talents you didn't even know you had, because you got by because it worked before. So I'm a big believer in these hard times are the ones you're going to end up telling your kids about, because everybody loves hearing about what the depression or things that went on. Again, they weren't easy, but you made it through it, and it's a story to be told. So take it on in a way that you want to tell a story. And whether you knock it out of the park or not, sometimes it doesn't matter. Everybody can give an excuse too why they don't do anything. You can always blame it on, that it happened to everybody, and we're all, that's why we went down. It didn't work. Well, if I did that with the auto show, would that be the answer? What you got to do is go out and find the things that are going to work, or try. And if you don't knock it out of the park, or something goes awry, I'd rather swing at the plate and miss one or two. I'm using baseball because you're wearing a baseball outfit. I'd rather take my swings to the plate and miss one or two. But maybe you can be Kirk Gibson for the day and really knock it out of the park with a bad leg.
I love it. I agree. You got to keep swinging. You're doing a good job. You kept swinging when the pandemic kept pushing the North American International Auto Show to a couple of dates. And then here you had it slated for September 2021, and you had to make another change. And you've got an event now happening at M1 Concourse called Motorbella. We've got a quick little short video that sort of sets up Motorbella. So let's take a look at that and we'll let you talk about it. That looks really cool. So tell us, what is your hopes for Motorbella?
Well, first I want to give you just a quick thing on Motorbella in the background. We had it planned for 2020, but it was going to be downtown outside in one of the parks area and all that. We kept the name, and then we realized, well, if we got to be outside completely, and we had to move it back into September a bit, just to get more time in with the pandemic, we found that we kept the name and we turned it just from being a super car event, a performance car event, and put all the cars into it, and all the brands. And you realize too, this is one of those things where you have a moment where you can take advantage of what's going on, some idea that we've had for a while that we could put into play. But here we have a track that we could create something new. We take the auto show itself and shelve it for a little bit, put it on the shelf and put it on pause. We create something new called Motorbella that does not have the auto show name in it. It's more of an engagement, activation, experiential opportunity for people that want to not just kick the tires and touch the car, but they can smell, see, and ride in the car possibly if the pandemic is far enough along.
Yeah.
And we can do it at a track that nobody else has in a region like we have it in our region. It's a 1.5 mile track. If you go to the next picture. Thanks, Christina. This shows you what's behind that in Pontiac, which is right up Woodward, where they have the Dream Cruise. And it's you really didn't know if you didn't go in there, you didn't realize how expansive it is. It's 87 acres, and they have 250 garages full of cars, probably 700 cars out there that are incredible cars. But we can take this and we're going to build displays out here. Now they're going to be more like you'd find at the Grand Prix or Daytona or something like that. But the thing is, we can do things out here and we can have a lot of people attend, and they can see product and experience the product. And by the way, mobility can be a part of this too, with autonomous cars and showing off how they look and sound or not sound like, because they don't make a sound if they're electric. But then we can rev up a Ferrari too. And you got a lot of Ferrari running out there, 0 to 60, and then you got another autonomous car going by that nobody driving it. How exciting is that? Now, where else in the world can you get that in one place? So in September, which is a good product month for debuts, is for 5 or 6 days, 6 days, we're going to have these products out there that hopefully you can get in and ride in and experience it and make it more comfortable, even with the mobility side of this new world we're going into. But the other is, which I throw it in here. Andrea and I went to Goodwood together. I don't know if you're familiar with Goodwood. It's an hour outside of London.
Yes.
And it's the middle of nowhere. In Goodwood, you touch, smell, everything, all your senses are engaged. We can do that in Detroit, and why not Detroit? I mean, we're that kind of city. So in essence, we're very excited about what we can do with this and grow. As you can see, locations are going to be activation driven. We got places for OEM displays. You see that blue and black area, which is we're taking a 1/2 mile of the track. That's a 1/2 mile, so get perspective here. And we're going to put displays in and around that because you got grass in through there too. But you can walk through. There's probably 300,000 square feet between that blue and black area. But if you take mobility up in the red area, you got grandstands. We can do staging for press events, and we can do off-road down in that the brown area in the bottom right. We can do off-road rides with Jeeps and whatever else. So you start taking this whole thing together, it's really a great, great possibility and opportunity, and something we can do every year and grow it. It's not there to compete with or take the place of the Detroit Auto Show. It's there to complement and do more things in our city, which is what we're all about anyway. And why not take the lead? Now, I don't know if this would have occurred if we would not have had the pandemic.
Good point.
So again, opportunity built into situations.
That's a great point. It looks amazing. I drove by actually just the other day, and there's massive construction going on there. So, and we did a DEC event there, June of 2019, I think, and it was amazing then, but it's even grown so much more since.
I tell you what I would like to know, Andrea here, she's a part of your group,
Yes.
And she has offered to have an event out there, right? Andrea, you could take them out there before this whole thing goes, and you could have we could do a presentation. You could see the track. A lot of you probably haven't been out there, but it's really, really amazing.
Yeah, anytime. We've been running a lot of tours out there. We've toured probably right around or even over 200 people out there, lots of different groups, and everybody's really excited to get out there once they get out and see the possibilities.
They're going to they're building a 30,000 square foot convention center. It's not big, but it's got the things you need for a place like that. And it's going to have a restaurant that's going to be open to the public, and plenty of catering locations within it. Very high tech, quite incredible overall. So again, if you ever want to do something out there, Steve, we'd love to have this young leadership, the young leader group here, be a part of that and see what's behind those fences. Because again, this is going to be the future. I see things like this happening again in coming years, and maybe we can grow this into another international event with media watching debuts of product of what's to come.
That's really cool. Thanks for the opportunity. we've got just a couple minutes for questions. I don't think we have any yet. So while somebody's teeing it up, so you're doing a great job innovating with MC3, Motorbella. What about the North American International Auto Show? What are your thoughts? Is that coming back in 2022? And what might that look like if it does?
A bit of a crystal ball thing here too. There's a lot that has to happen in a year and a half to make it come together. We're planning a show for the end of next year in Detroit. A bit of the litmus test will be what we're doing in the parks coming up here in August, because then we can see what that would look like and how people get around. So we're learning with that one too. But this will be a different show. I think what we have to realize that the massive displays and the $10 million double deckers, which were great during their time, but if we count on that every year now, we're gonna be in harm's way. Yeah. We have to build it in such a way that's good ROI, a lot more outdoor displays. TCF could be a ride and drive. I'm not saying it is, but it could be anything, and it doesn't mean it has to be large structures like it used to be. So I think what you're going to plan on is seeing something in Detroit next year. It could be the Detroit Auto Show and maybe not the North American International Auto Show. We have to decide what that is. But it will morph, and Andrea, again, is working with me. She does all the floor planning and works with the city of Detroit. So we've got a lot to do there, and something like that takes a lot of time. But I believe in Detroit. That's why we're doing MC3. And I believe in doing multiple events. One big event is really throwing a lot of cash at one big event, and you got to be careful with that these days.
Great. We do have a question, Rod. Dave Stahl, if you want to unmute yourself from Plant Moran Wealth Management, fire away.
Hey, David.
Hey, Rod. Thanks for spending the time with us today.
Absolutely.
I had a question for you. I love the comments about, making the most of the opportunity that challenges present you in your role, given the number of people you have to convince of that and get them to buy into your vision and what you guys are doing. Just would love to hear your perspective on kind of how you've been able to effectively navigate that and bring people into that way of thinking and getting them to buy into some of these big changes that you're making.
That probably is another presentation in itself, probably an hour long. I think the first thing is getting people to understand, and I said before that there's more than one way to do something and accomplish it, especially with the change going on. You're not going to get, what I found is you don't get total buy-in from everybody on the get-go. There's some that push back. And you have to be very persistent with what you believe in. And actually, your conviction is going to sell a lot of it. You can't show any doubt along the way, even though you want to sometimes, because it's easy to doubt yourself. And I think taking the time with everybody individually to explain where it's headed, not just collectively, which takes more time. And a lot of people don't want to give that up, but you got to spend time individually with people because it takes that. And I've made some mistakes along the way. Trust me. I didn't include some people when we made the announcement, and I paid for that a bit. But I think that's where you go to your talents and your whatever personality that you run with and your persuasiveness, and you've got to work with everybody. And then when they tell you you're out of your mind, you can't listen because you're going to hear that. I thought I was out of my mind for a little bit because 30 years of the same thing, why change? It'd been easy for me not to after 30 years. And I'm at my age right now, I'm thinking, well, why mess with that? Because it is painful and it's not pretty. And by the way, the next year is not going to be easy either. We're still convincing people. So maybe I didn't answer the question directly, but I think your personal conviction and your true character of pulling everything together that you can muster up and then building your team accordingly is going to make the difference.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod. You got time for one more? Marissa from Aludyne is with us, and she's got a question.
Hello.
Hi, yes, I had to
Hi,
get
Marissa.
the unmute working. Hello. Question from my side is, have you got any feedback from the OEMs or the tier one component suppliers about your change to the auto
Yeah, I'm
show and Motorbella? And if so, what has that been?
Yeah, I'm going to have Andrea answer part of this. One is that the big challenge you have right now too with a lot of the manufacturers and our partners and suppliers that we deal with too, because it's a part of the show, is that they have their own policies built in with big corporations on the pandemic and how they're no travel or how long they're going to be locked down. And it's more of a blanket effect, and then it affects us on their decision timing. And again, when you're in a show, you have to have early commitment for planning. The other is, you deal in different levels, and I'm looking at regional people too from the factory, because sometimes you got to get back to the core of who you are. I believe in chasing the international side, but at some point it comes back to the consumer and the buyer. And if you go back to your core and build off your core again and not chase the big thing you had, you're a lot better off, because you got to build it incrementally and not on a house of cards. Andrea has been talking with the OEMs though. Andrea, why don't you jump in here? You get a question.
Yep. So I will say to the last question, I was probably one of the first people to think Rod was crazy with all this. But he did bring me along, and I began to see the vision, and now couldn't be, more excited about what we've got going on out there. It was a big shift. The brands have come along quite well. Obviously, they like that it's new and it's fresh. Being outdoors makes everyone feel a lot safer with COVID restrictions and things like that. They are basically seeing this, as Rod said, as an opportunity to get back to basics, focus on consumers more so than making a big splash with the media. Although I will say that some of them are still looking to make news and have some debuts, but the focus is definitely more so on the consumer side of things, educating the consumer. What you're going to see out there is some of the brands are telling different stories than you'd see in the past. For one, I've got one brand that's really, wanting to focus on the story of their brand and what they see in their future planning, and really walking the general consumer, general public through that story. So rather than focusing on maybe just, this is the brand new vehicle model of this show that we really want the whole story about. They're like, no, let's talk about what our company is doing for consumers, future planning, things like that. So that's been really interesting to see. And as Rod mentioned, seeing the different participation levels, where we've got anywhere from the true consumer focus of just the region upwards to, as I mentioned, the, brand as a whole. So that's been something that's really interesting to see, and lots of support from our supplier community with, Southeast Michigan being one of the largest automotive supplier hubs of the world. They're not abandoning the show in any way, shape, or form. They're really sticking together.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrea. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Andrea. We are lucky to have you as a DEC member, and Rod's lucky to have you on the team. So thank you. And Rod, let me finish with this. I know we've completely destroyed the time frame here, but I thought this would be a good maybe final question to pick your brain on. So you see this perfect storm coming. You've been at this for 30 years. Did you ever think maybe it's time to move on and leave this battle to somebody else, and I'll go on to do something different? Why did you stick it out?
One thing I've learned is it's you hear that "what have you done for me lately" thing. Whatever you've done for 30 years and all the money we've raised on charity, that's all great and fine and dandy. But I've gotten to the point now, and we were really proud of that. And it could be, maybe that's a good way to go out with a swan song. But there's something about the challenge that comes with this to set it up for the next 30 years. And if we do it the right way, again, I'm not going to be here in 5 years doing this. But in the next 2 to 3 years, we get it teed up, and whoever comes in to take us over can do the same. But a lot of the team, like Andrea, will still be here to carry it on. But I got to tell you, there's nothing, I think it'd be worse if, I'm going to go back to the Kirk Gibson thing, and I'll finish with that. If you're in the dugout and somebody, they're going to call your name to go to the plate, or they're going to call somebody else's name, do you want to be the one that goes, oh, I'd rather have him go to the plate? No. everybody, whatever it is that you're going to go compete in, and you're going to have all eyes on you, and that's okay. I'd rather be up there swinging away. And I think we all feel that. You wouldn't be on this call today. Everybody here wouldn't be unless you felt that way, because you're taking the time out of your day wanting to learn something new and apply it for the next 30, 40 years in your life. So I say take your swings. Don't give up one, because you don't get them back.
I love it. Well, Rod, we are so lucky that you're steering the ship, and I can't thank you enough for the thoughtful conversation today. And thanks for all you do for the DEC, all the charities in Southeast Michigan, and for me personally in my role. So hope we can do this again in person next time. But thank you so much for your time and for Andrea's time.
Steve, you're doing a great job, and I'm excited about the group you have here and what they can do for the future of Detroit. So thank you for having me.
Great. Have a good day, Rod. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks. And for the rest of you, I want to thank my team for their work on today's session. And some of you, and I hope most of you, are going to stick around for 15 minutes of networking. Our next YL CEO series was just announced today. It's May 25th with Rich Homburg, CEO of Detroit Public TV. So thank you if you have to leave us, and goodbye. Hope to see you next Tuesday with Jeff Immelt.